Well, here we are, and I'm taking a look at TwoSun kitchen knives, and I've kind of shown these a little bit, and I've certainly mentioned them in a lot of more of my kitchen cutlery series. But these are basically what I consider to be the cream of the crop as far as what TwoSun is doing for kitchen knives these days. I will go over these a little bit more individually, but yeah, pretty much. All of these are going to be full tang with some posts and mosaic pins in there. They're all rocking 14C28N steel that's been forged from kind of a larger billet rather than stamped or anything like that. Helps with balance and whatnot. Yeah, with the exception of this guy over here, which I'll certainly go over as well. But yeah, let's get some of these guys off of the table so I can go over these just a little bit easier. We are going to start with basically my favorite chef's knife that I have used thus far, regardless of company. And that is this guy, the TwoSun TS9xx. Use my cutting board. Here we are. It's not big, but it'll do. In fact, here, I'll swap it over so you don't have to look at all the brown from the twisted sisal rope I've been cutting with it. But yeah, this is definitely a full 8-inch chef's knife. And kind of interesting, it has a bit of a clip point kind of going on here. That actually does make it a little bit easier to use the tip of this knife here for doing some more intricate tasks and whatnot. But this thing is very tall, which is fantastic. Gives you plenty of knuckle clearance, even for, those of us with larger meat bits and everything like that. It's got a perfect geometry for doing a lot of the mincing kind of tasks you're probably familiar with. And as far as the long draws and all that sort of stuff. Very, very nice polish. Like I said, they are pinned. Full tang construction. And they got G10 for the handle scales, so they won't, shrink or crack or whatever with time. They're very impervious to things. And a beautiful little mosaic pin on for the center one there. It's a pretty attractive little thing there. But yeah, as far as all of the chef's knives that I've played around with thus far, this one is absolutely my favorite. You got that nice balance right there at the bolster. And very, very nice and knocked down edges. I did actually knock these down a little bit after the fact myself, just because I could. I just took a ceramic rod to them, nothing super aggressive or anything like that. They're already pretty darn comfortable, but, this just helped out just a little tiny bit, because I felt like I could do it, and I did it. So, yeah, the steel in these guys, 14C28N, does a darn good job of doing all those kitchen knife tasks. It is a step up from a lot of the Henckels and Wüsthof and Messermeister's standard blade steel, which is usually X50 CR MOV 15, one of those alphabet soup kind of things. This is just a little bit step up, and they do these just a slightly bit softer than they do for say their pocket knives that use 14C28N, whereas these are, usually somewhere like 59 to 61, probably somewhere right around there. These are probably 58 to 60, maybe 57, I don't know, whatever. But that does mean that these things are very maintainable. So you can, like I've been doing recently, just using a leather strap with some compound on there to keep these guys maintained, to keep their edge. Or you can feel free to use a kitchen steel like you would with any other kind of European cutlery kind of thing, because they're not ridiculously hard behind the edge like a lot of Japanese knives are that you really can't use a kitchen steel with, because you'll end up just chipping parts of the blade off rather than actually realigning it. So yeah, it is very, very versatile, and it is certainly something that most companies, even if they do, make some Japanese style knives or, other Eastern cutlery kind of things, they will kind of do this concession and kind of have a mix of both. And I think that's quite nice because it's much easier to maintain these than, take it to a sharpening stone every time it gets dull kind of thing. And yeah, so this is absolutely my favorite. Does a fantastic job. But if for whatever reason you're not super enthused about that handle, they do have a different version of it, as we can see here. This is, as you can see, yep, same exact blade shape, as long as I can get them both in the shot. There we are. But, yeah, this one is done much more like a J.A. Henckels 4-star, where it's basically a stick tang that they slap the pommel onto the end of, and it's G10 all around. Yeah, it doesn't have the pens or anything like that, but we still basically have the same kind of balance. This one's just a little bit further back on the bolster, but still very, very light and nimble, able to do basically anything that you want to do. So yeah, that's this one. Let's see, this was the 9xx. I do believe I won the first auction on this, and as I've mentioned before, that one in particular was listed as the 6xx rather than the 9xx, but they've changed that on all of the additional auctions and whatnot that I've seen for it. So yeah, definitely 999, fantastic knife. I'll go ahead and set that aside. Let's see, and we do have another chef's knife here. This one is pretty darn similar, but this one's a little bit more traditional, elongated leaf style, where it doesn't really have much of a notch there at the end. Otherwise, this is pretty darn similar to the 999. This one in particular was, what, the 950? Let's see. Nope, it's not the 950. I don't know. It's the 9-something or other. Oh, this is the 977. Sorry. This is the 999. So yeah, this is the 977. So yeah, very much similar handle. Nothing really different kind of going on there. The blade shape doesn't have that kind of notch there at the end. It's still very, very functional, but I do kind of prefer having that little clip there at the end, but not something super, super severe. This one is just slightly shorter in length. You still have plenty of knuckle clearance for anything that you want to do. But yeah, just slightly less tall. This is a little bit more standard European or French style chef's knife or whatever. So yeah, that's a pretty good choice if you don't like that little notch that the 999 has. But I do. Let's see. Next up is this guy. This is the 933, and this is their Santoku. And yeah, you can see it's got the flutings or the Granton edge or Kahlenschliff. It really depends on what company you're talking about. But yeah, now these things do help release food stickage from them a little bit. The invention of these things was much more for the butchering industry, allowing protein-laden liquids as well as fats to help move a blade through that. These things don't quite just remove all suction. Like if you're cutting potatoes or something like that, they're still going to end up sticking to the blade. But it does help a bit. And it doesn't really hurt the blade edge at all, even if you do end up sharpening way up into there. They still have enough meat behind them to actually continue to have a nice functional edge. Now, yeah, Santokus are a little bit shorter than a chef's knife. These guys are about 7 inches, which that's about right. That same handle fantastic, same handle. And yep, these guys have the balance at the back of the bolster there too. These ones can do a little bit of mincing work, but their belly in general isn't quite as extended as a chef's knife will be. That's because these are, Japanese design and origin, and more often than not, they're holding the knife like this and doing up and down and pull cutting motions. They're not, digging in with the heel necessarily quite as much. But as I was saying earlier, these are kind of a Japanese / European hybrid, so it does actually have a belly. It's not absolutely flat like a super traditional Santoku would be. So yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds. I have actually purchased this knife a lot of times. 3 times, in fact. I bought it. This was one of the first TwoSun kitchen knives that I had purchased. Got it, found it to be absolutely fantastic, and decided that both my mother and my sister needed one. So I've done that. And yeah, they are super affordable. It really depends on what the auction might be, or what kind of pricing they'd have on AliExpress or whatnot. But yeah, very, very obtainable. I don't think I've paid much more than about $42 for any of these. And for that price, they are just phenomenal. The fit and finish on all of these guys is amazing. You don't really have any noticeable seams between the G10 and the bolster or the spine or the end cap or any of that sort of stuff. It's just fantastic. Alright, and another one. I do believe I've kind of talked about this one a little bit here. This is the 955. This is Kutlery. So this is kind of like a Santoku. You can see it's much flatter as far as the blade goes. It's because this is much more of a Chinese / Japanese hybrid, cleaver kind of design. That's why, yeah, you're not really designed to be rocking with it all that much, but it does curl up just a little tiny bit at the tip there. Probably hard to see on the camera, but when you actually get it down on a cutting board, you can see there is just a little bit there. And that does help out a little bit with doing some pull cuts and whatnot. But this one is also forged, which isn't super traditional for a lot of Japanese and Chinese cutlery. We got the balance point there, basically right there in the center of the bolster. And yeah, because of that, you can actually do a pinch grip on this thing. And you have plenty of knuckle clearance as well for doing anything that you want to do. Like other vegetable cleavers sort of things, this is fantastic for knocking down a whole bunch of vegetation. It doesn't really have so much of a point on there, so it's not super great for dealing with a lot of meat, and you really don't want to be hacking through raw bones or anything like that. This isn't really a meat cleaver. This is for, taking care of a whole lot of everything else. And it does a pretty darn good job. After playing around with quite a few Kutleries, I have kind of come to the realization that they're not exactly the ideal knife for me. If I'm going to reach for a knife like this, it'll probably be a Santoku. They're about the same size and just a little bit more convenient shape. So yeah, there's that. We do also have one that I had just recently talked about, which I don't have in front of me, which was that TS9xx. And that was basically constructed the same as any of these guys were. But it was Wong designed, and it was much more of a Bowie shape. So, we're talking, we had this little tiny notch sort of going on here. This had a whole clip point, like a buck 110 or, a Bowie knife. And it's a very interesting knife, and it's made just as well as any of these guys here. But, yeah, the shape just isn't quite as nice to me for everyday use as something like this TS999, for instance. So yeah, Just realized that I had mentioned these guys quite a bit in some previous videos, but I hadn't really gone completely over them before. Or at least, if I have, I missed it as far as my uploads and as far as me kind of knocking off what I have and haven't talked about on my Excel spreadsheet. So I figured I'd kind of take the time to talk about all these sort of guys. Yeah, so the two that I end up having in my knife block at all times is the 999 and the 933 Santoku. Both of those are absolutely fantastic. I would really, really like to see TwoSun try their hands at some other kind of designs. You know, if we can get some utility knife, or I guess if they want to do a little bit more Eastern style, they could do like a deva or a petty knife or something like that. Those would be pretty fantastic. I would also love to see a bonings and or filet knife from them, because that Nexus one I have is pretty darn fantastic, but I'd love to see what TwoSun could do with similar kind of designs. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening throughout, you know, this year and the future. See if they might come out with any more of those. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts and feelings here on the TS900 series, as I'm just gonna end up calling them. Definitely worth your price, or definitely worth the price for a lot of them. And yeah, like I was saying, even if you are buying it retail from like their AliExpress store or whatever, still very, very affordable. So there you go. All right, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo. And subscribe, maybe.